In January of 1985, we had the first of what was called a Gong Show. This was a concept that Michael Eisner brought over to Disney from Paramount.
It was an opportunity for all of us to get together and to sort of open the doors up and hear everything and anything.
Everyone was supposed to come up with 5 new ideas for animated features. And I went out and looked for ideas, and I went into a bookstore and I read The Little Mermaid and got very excited about it and wondered why it had never been done before. And then realized when I got to the end that it was a very sad story where the mermaid dies at the end and loses her prince. But I came up with an idea of a way to make it end in a happier way, wrote up a 2-page treatment, and then when we reconvened 2 weeks later, I pitched The Little Mermaid. It actually got gonged.
It was gonged because they were in development at that point on a sequel to Splash, and they thought it would be too close, so they just said, nah, we're doing the sequel to Splash, forget it.
But the next day, I got a call from Jeffrey Katzenberg, who said he had read the treatment and actually thought it had potential, and it was put in development.
It was outstanding, and it was better in the writing than it was in the telling. The question was, what do you do with it next? In the world in which I come from, go hire a great screenwriter.
So I guess he was checking out other writers, people were sending in drafts and everything, and Ron Clements finally came to him and said, I think we can do a good job on this.
John Musker and I, we had worked together quite a bit. We were both writers as well as storymen, so it seemed natural to ask him if he would want to collaborate on a script.
Ron and John really fought passionately for an opportunity to write it, and you know, as animators and as animation directors, it never occurred to me that they were screenwriters.
The idea of doing a fairy tale appealed to me because it was certainly a part of the Disney tradition, but there hadn't been one in 30 years, so it was doing something in a tradition and yet trying to find a new approach to it that really hadn't been done before.
They wrote a stunning screenplay. I mean, just to this day, I remember it as being one of the best of anything I've ever had.
Peter Schneider was also a major influence in the studio at that time because he fostered this whole idea of communication.
It was a collective process. There's no one person can take ownership. That's what's so beautiful about animation. It's everybody.
So while we were working on this script, we heard that Howard Ashman had actually been approached by the studio and was actually interested in working on The Little Mermaid.
I grew up on Pinocchio and Peter Pan, and the idea of doing one of those is like there's all these library books on the shelf. There's Snow White, and there's Sleeping Beauty, and there's Cinderella, there's Peter Pan, there's Pinocchio. And to try to make something that fits comfortably on the shelf with those, I mean, that's like, what a difficult thing to do, but what a great thing to try to do.
There you see her, sitting there across the way.
We were adapting Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale in the style of Disney. And so in a sense we were pastiching Disney. In order to pastiche Disney, we naturally brought in styles from the outside. And calypso and reggae were clearly a new style to bring in.
The seaweed is always greener in somebody else's lake. We dream about going up there, but that is a big mistake.
I think that was one of Howard's greatest gifts, was making stylistic marriages.
Don't say a word, and she won't say a word until you kiss the girl.
Howard and Alan actually moved to Los Angeles, and they had offices right there in the animation building.
They would be off in a room, sitting at the piano, making up songs.
This music is Alan Menken composing for The Little Mermaid, but we shouldn't have.
So when they're working on Under the Sea, you hear dun 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 dun.
I just remember thinking, where does this great music come from, these great songs? We haven't had stuff like this in ages.
Well, the first time I heard Under the Sea, I had that in my car, just wearing it out.
Under the sea, under the sea. Nobody beat us, fry us, and eat us in fricassee.
He loved playing with words, it's obvious from his lyrics.
The flute played the flute, the cop played the harp.
The bass played the bass and he sounded sharp.
The bass played the brass, the chub played the tub.
The trout was rocking out.
The flute is the Duke of Soul. Yeah. The rake, he can play the lings on the strings.
The trout rocking out, the blackfish he sings, the smelt and the sprat, they know where it's at. And oh, that blowfish blow!
There's something about Under the Sea that just to me That's such a Howard song.
What do they got? A lot of sand. We got a hot crustacean band.
Every time I heard these songs, they just sort of so effortlessly rolled off, you know, your tongue.
I could think, these are great songs. I have to go work on that movie.
There was electricity in the air. I mean, there was real genius at work, and people knew it.
The music was gorgeous. The arrangements were incredibly good. It just took everything to a new level.
One of the great things with Howard and Alan's music, I think, is the wittiness of it. It isn't dumbed down for any audience.
Sacre bleu! What is this? How on earth could I miss such a sweet little succulent crab?
I think we wanted to make songs that would tell the story, songs that would really move the story forward, really push the plot along and keep things driving ahead.
They approached it like a Broadway musical. It is something totally different. The characters actually run out of words, can't express themselves anymore, and it has to come out in song.
You get to a certain point where the crab has to convince the mermaid not to go up above the water and change her life, so he has to sing Under the Sea. And she has to sing Part of Your World because she wants to go up to dry land so badly.
When she's saying to Flounder, you know, I've got all these treasures around, I've got this and I've got this, and I say, look at this stuff. I mean, it just comes right out of the dialogue that she has. And then she just begins this monologue that happens to be put to music.
I want to be where the people are. I want to see them dancing, walking around on those, what do you call them? Oh, feet.
The choices that you make in doing an animated picture aren't necessarily about trying to do something new. It wasn't so much okay, we're going to do a new heroine.
I approached her with the idea that she was a real teenager with genuine teenage angst about, you know, I'm still a little girl, but I want to be a big girl.
I'm 16 years old. I'm not a child
Don't
anymore.
you take that tone of voice with me, young lady.
The choice for red hair was definitely a very conscious, deliberate choice. For me, what I remember was simply the fact that we had just come out with a mermaid picture in Splash, and you had a blonde Daryl Hannah. So right away it was just like, well, we got to do something different.
I remember a major argument over Ariel's hair. People would walk into the room with totally different images in their heads. Jeffrey thought he was going to see Daryl Hannah, maybe.
You know, he's like, guys, everybody knows mermaids are blonde, okay? And we're like, do they know that? Do we know that?
The choice of red hair for Ariel works way better than blonde because, for one thing, you've got these lovely complements. You've got the red on top and the green tail. So you've got two complements, which gives you an energy.
I knew it!
Also, you want to take her into a dark place and her hair gets darker. A dark shade of red is really much more easy to accomplish than to take yellow and make a dark yellow. Ugh.
All characters go through this where you start out with something that's close and it kind of evolves. But I think Ursula probably, more than any character, went through a huge amount of reiterations before ending up with the final design.
In the original development drawings, she was played as a lionfish or a scorpionfish, where she had all these spikes and spines. And it was Matt O'Callaghan, who was storyboarding on the movie, who really came up with the idea of the witch as an octopus, and that really launched it in a different direction that we thought actually made sense.
We tried fat versions, we tried skinny versions, and the fat ones always looked more interesting.
After having written the script, we went into storyboards. We put the film on reels, which is shooting the storyboard drawings and filming them.
There was no animation, but we had the dialogue, we had the voices, we had story sketches to illustrate all the story points.
It was right around the end of 1987, early 1988, that we showed this assemblage of the whole movie to Jeffrey Katzenberg. Here's our movie, here are the songs plugged in, here's the story, here's the characters. What do you think?
And his reaction was, I love the script, I love the songs, I don't love this. Why don't I love this?